Hey there, Fletcher from All Things Overlanding here. Today, I'm with Michael Linden from Lithium Battery Power. Their company specializes in historically marine-based lithium batteries, but they are expanding into like the overlanding world. I actually met him at More Expo a few months ago, and just super cool, super nice guy. I have a lot of questions about it because I'm getting ready to set up a dual battery system using my Red Arc stuff in my Frontier. Today, though, we are going to talk about the benefits of AGM versus lithium. So we're going to kind of do pros and cons of each. It's not necessarily to say that either one is a bad option for you, but again, the idea is to give you enough information that hopefully you can kind of look at your setup, look at the stuff that you are thinking of running, and this information will help you decide which one is best for your setup. So again, we're going to dive into AGM versus lithium, pros and cons, and final thoughts here in just a second. Stay tuned. So as you just heard in the intro, today I'm with Michael Linden. We are going to be talking about AGM versus lithium batteries and just a bunch of pros and cons of those things. So welcome, Michael. Thank you for being with me today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Jason, thanks for having me on. It was great meeting you at the More Expo.
Yeah, it was awesome. I love the More Expo. What did you think of it? Was that your first time there? You guys' first
It
time?
was our first, yeah, it was LBP Lithium Battery Power's first time there,
Yeah,
and yeah, I love the Ozarks. It was just it was nice to get out of the Florida heat, and kind of
yeah,
get some mountain action, and get
nice.
the rhythm of the road and drive. And man, Chris puts on a great
Yeah,
show.
yeah. That was my second year there, and I've always been super impressed. Like, I'm not a retailer or anything like that, but I'm fascinated by sort of the give and take of that. And it seems like a lot of people go there to learn stuff and buy stuff, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, it was great to just inform people about lithium. Everyone
Yeah,
was very interested and just really wanted to gain knowledge, and then also just networking with all the vendors. All the guys were just a blast to hang out with all weekend.
yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of that, right, that kind of brings us to our topic. We were going to kind of talk today about not necessarily the one is better than the other, right? Like I told
No,
you earlier, I mean, I've got an AGM starter and then I've got a lithium backup slash house battery. But so
absolutely.
kind of talking about the pros and cons of each and dispelling some myths maybe too, because I know I've heard things like, oh, lithium won't charge in the winter or, a bunch of stuff like that. But you are obviously way more knowledgeable than me. So I would love to gain some knowledge from you on this, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
do you want to
There's
start with
plenty of
pros of lithium and then we can go pros of AGM and then go
yeah
cons?
pro yeah, absolutely. Can kind of hit on both. I mean, there's plenty of pros for both, depending
Sure.
on your system, what you're using, and where you go.
Yeah.
So pros of AGM. First of all, you can beat the crap out of them. They can take a beating. You
Yeah.
can take them in really cold weather, real hot weather, and you can really kind of just throw it at the wall, and it's going to take it.
Sure.
So there's those great things. When it comes
Yeah.
to lithium, you have a lot of other great things. You get this, depth of discharge where, you
Sure.
get about 95% out of that battery before the battery management system will kick in to, protect those cells. A lot of people say you get 100%. And you get pretty close, but it's nice to have that BMS in there that just protects everything and make sure everything inside that battery is running properly.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Well, and that's kind of was my thinking. And again, I'm not all that educated, but I've done some research, right? But when I was looking at my setup, and you and I kind of touched on this earlier, but we can touch on it more that, the AGM batteries are great for a starter option, right? Because
Yeah.
lithium, the technology is not there yet. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, the technology is there with some batteries because at LBP we make some batteries that have cold cranking amps, so we're
Sure.
turning over marine motors and things of that nature. But from what we've kind of delved into and realized is right, really cold and trying to get those batteries to kick over, and
Mhm.
then also is a lot of these engines aren't really made to handle that standard 14.4 voltage. And
Yeah.
then with that, the alternators that are inside of these, they're just not strong enough. And you can put you can put a lithium battery as your starter, but you're gonna burn your alternator up,
Huh.
or you're gonna, have so many cold cranking amps that you're just gonna shoot the motor through the hood,
Yeah, I never even thought about that. I mean, I guess I've heard that there's a difference in the voltage output between the lithium and like an AGM or a traditional starter battery, right? But I never really thought about that. That's a good point.
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty
there's a
fascinating.
company in Kansas City. I was talking with one of the guys at more. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but they make these some beefy alternators
Right.
for a lot of these overland guys that do want to have a lithium starting battery, and they run about $800.
Ooh,
But it's a beefier alternator. It's putting out over 70, 80 amps, so it can really push the power and voltage in there. And like you said, yeah, the standard voltage on most lithium batteries is 14.2, 14.3 for a 12-volt battery. And those
yeah,
AGMs, they sit around 13.6 or so. And just
yeah,
some of those chargers just aren't going to get it topped off all the
sure.
way.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I feel good. I feel better about my choice to do AGM starter, and mine's about
Yeah,
120 amp hour
yeah.
AGM starter, I think. So I get a little bit more juice in that, and then I've got a 100 amp hour lithium house battery.
And then that's
So
where it really gets going. And that's where the meat and potatoes for lithium currently, it really is. You can
sure.
run your cooler, you can run a little mini AC, you can run, all your electric
Diesel heater
appliances,
for the winter.
diesel heater for the winter to,
Yeah.
you charging your phone, laptop, and everything without having to have, your car on,
Right.
the
Yeah.
whole time you're doing it. So it
Yeah.
really gets really beneficial when you start wanting to add all the toys that we want to have with us when we're traveling and doing
Yeah.
stuff. Is as much as we try to get rugged and be old school, is we still like to have a few little
It's a
small
little glampy.
amenities when we're,
Little
yeah,
glampy.
still like to have something when we're with us.
Right. That's overlanding from what I've seen is not necessarily doesn't mean roughing it. We're not in the military, right? This isn't like something we're being forced to do. We want to enjoy it when we go out there. So it makes perfect sense. Do you think we've covered pretty much all the pros there? Should we jump into cons, or are there more things you want to touch on?
So as far as pros, yeah, I mean, we can circle back to. I'm sure I'll have some other things pop in my head too as we
Sure.
kind of keep the conversation going and kind of get into cons, and I'll be, oh
Yeah.
yeah, hang on, well there's something else that's
Yeah.
good too. But
Yeah.
yeah, cons of AGM really come to the depth of discharge, like how the
Sure.
benefit is lithium. With that Puchert effect, you're only getting about 45% of that battery. So
Right.
again, when you're using it for a house battery, fantastic. But when you want to think about having those amenities, having those things, you want to be able to have that diesel heater on all night, and you
Yeah.
want to be able to go 8 hours if you're sleeping
Right.
and have it. And you just don't have that full effect with the AGM. And then if you do, you got to have 2, 3 batteries to get you the proper. Then you're running into weight distribution. Then you're
Yeah.
running into an extra, 150, 200 pounds in the back of the cab rather than, with a lithium battery. That's another pro, like we were just saying, is,
Yeah.
one 100 amp hour lithium battery on average weighs about 30 pounds. So you're
Sure.
cutting a ton of weight where you can add a cooler, you can add more gear, and you can, distribute it a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. Well, and it's kind of funny because of that depth of discharge. So I'm sort of new to my battery. I mentioned to you earlier, I killed my last battery on accident because I got locked out of my truck, which was a lot of fun. But so my new lithium or my new AGM battery seems like it's been fine, but I have an IceCo JP50 fridge, and I accidentally turned it on max mode instead of eco mode, and somehow I literally turned it on like 2 o'clock in the afternoon the day before I was going to leave for a trip. Next day I went out, unlocked the car, and it worked. It had enough juice to unlock the vehicle, but it would not start. Did not have enough juice to start. And I feel like there should be some protection on the fridge, even in max mode, where it should have stopped that, but it didn't. It killed the battery. And ironically, I had to use my NOCO lithium jump starter, a little tiny lithium
Yeah, oh
NOCO
yeah.
deal, and put it
Oh,
on
those are
there
the
and jump start the
best.
truck. And then it was fine. Drove it for 2 hours, worked fine all night, but it was a little warmer here. It was like in the 80s. So like it had to run pretty hard to get that fridge down to temp and then keep it there all night, I'm sure. So
Oh, absolutely.
it's kind of
So
not what you want.
one thing you can look at getting is a battery isolator, and that's something
Yeah,
you can wire in between your lithium and your AGM, because when
sure.
you have it wired, you're charging your lithium off of your standard alternator, just
Yeah,
kind of floating it through too. And having an isolator on there that you can switch would prevent getting that pull from that AGM when
yeah,
when you have it wired in. So something
yeah,
little you could think about in the future, just a little
sure.
setup to add in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually kind of embarrassing because I don't have the second battery in yet. That was just AGM. I just killed my
Oh,
AGM battery.
okay. Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
and on top of that, I have a Red Arc Red Vision system that I've had for like 6 months, but I have not installed it yet. So It's
Well, that's
literally
what I
sitting
was
in my
gonna.
garage. So I've got all the management. I've got my solar panel that I had on my old truck is sitting in the garage. It's at the end of next month. I'm meeting up with a buddy of mine that's an electrician. And he and I are going to work on it, but it's just been scheduled. So I have all this stuff sitting there that would have prevented this, and it's just sitting in my garage. So
Hey, sometimes that happens. You know what I mean?
eventually
Hey,
it'll be great,
sometimes
but for right now,
we
I have
don't
to
have the
deal.
time.
Right.
Life happens, and we got kids and families, and sometimes we just don't have the time to put it in, and we still want to enjoy stuff. So
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
But
I'm
that's
still going camping, even though I don't have all my stuff in, for sure.
absolutely,
So yeah.
absolutely. And I was going to touch on that too. Is the two different charging options, because there are a lot of negatives people say about the lithium and being in cold weather and overlanding. We like to get up in the mountains. We like to do it in the wintertime. We want to get out of the house and don't want to be stuck, and we
Right.
want to go have scenic views and enjoy the snow also.
Yep.
So there are some of those, and great things to look at is like the red vision, like the red arc system,
Mhm.
and also solar. So
Sure.
they say not to charge lithium batteries unless it's 32 degrees or so, and they try not to get below charging when it's that, and that is true to a point. But when you are doing things like solar charging, or you're using your red arc, you are always kind of pumping a little bit of power to
Yeah.
that battery. So while it might be really cold on the outside, think of it almost like a log cabin. Yeah, it's
Sure.
really cold outside, but the inside of that battery is insulated, and it's almost like you got the fire on the inside of your log
Right.
cabin. So while, yes, outside it might be below zero,
Yeah.
just that does not mean that the inside of that battery actually is below zero,
Sure.
especially when you're doing solar charging and that, because you're always pumping just a little bit of power there,
Yeah.
and it's keeping those cells warm.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, if you had it just sitting outside in the snow
Right.
and then you wanted to charge it, yeah, okay, you're kind of SOL, and you want to, bring that inside, kind of,
Right.
bring it up, get it out of the temperature. But when you have it in the back of your rig and you're
Yeah.
using these other systems like a solar and like a red arc,
Mhm.
you're always going to be pumping a little bit of power, keeping those cells warm. You really
Yeah.
don't have to worry about that whole, under 32-degree charging,
Yeah.
as much.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Well, and like, I don't know about everyone else's trips, but my trips historically have been like hit the trails for 8 to 12 hours a day and then hit camp as it's getting dark and set up and go to sleep. And of course, you're not going to be solar charging at night. And yes, it's going to get cold even inside the cab. But for the rest of the day, like my heat is on, it's going to be warm inside the cab. I can charge that thing up, run off of it, discharge it all night. Next day, wake up, warm it up, warm up the truck. Solar's pumping in. Yeah.
Exactly.
Good to go.
And that's exactly it. Is you're running it all day, you're not too worried. And then
No.
also another way to think about it is like, yeah, you can say you're in the cold, then you're running your diesel heater all night, right? And
Sure.
you're using power. The battery's nice and warm because it's being used. So
Yeah,
then
that's a good
even in the
point.
morning when you go to charge it, the battery's nice and warm because it's been being used all night. So
Yeah.
even if it is cold outside, it's like I said, that whole kind of log cabin idea is kind of
That's
how
a
I like to
great
explain
point.
it.
Yeah, I never thought about, I mean, obviously using it, I guess, is going to generate some heat, right? Just the discharge and
Yep.
recharging of the battery. So that's a great point. I never thought about that.
Yeah,
And yeah, I'm
absolutely.
not going to take it out and put it in the snow next to the tent and the diesel heater, right? I'm going to leave it inside the truck where it's mounted. So that's great. Perfect. So do we want to end with sort of final thoughts? I mean, I know obviously you're probably a tiny bit biased, although you've been saying really good things about AGM, but you work for a lithium battery company, right? But I mean, I can say my final thoughts and you could say, I mean, well, you go first because you've already kind of said the good things about AGM and lithium, and then I'll
Yeah,
reinforce.
the way I like to look at it is, yeah, okay, I do work for a lithium battery manufacturer, but at the end of the day, I'm here to provide anybody with whatever system or that anything they're trying to solve with as much information as possible, because
Sure.
at the end of the day, lithium is a big investment.
Sure.
And you want to make sure that you are properly, feel like you really can comprehend it when you're dropping, over $1,000 on a battery. Some guys, when they're just getting started, it makes more sense for them just to have, a couple AGMs in the back.
Sure.
And then, if they're noticing that, okay, they're not getting the runtime, they're not getting the power, they're taking their rig out every single weekend as opposed to, once every 3 months or
Right.
so. And, we like to just make sure you're informed, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure you have the right system for you, and you're happy with it.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. I think I love it because I definitely recognize that I think there are a lot of advantages to lithium, but to your point, right? Like I feel like as long as you have some sort of a management system that can handle both, right? Because that's something that you have to be concerned about, from my understanding, is
Yeah,
sometimes it's difficult to charge different, unless you have like a proper charging system like a Red Arc or something like
like a
that.
red arc, absolutely.
But in my case, once I'm finally get that all put in, right, then I will have that, and I'll be able to have the AGM starter battery to have that advantage in the winter from the cold cranking amps and the that alternator recharging standpoint, and then also have the benefit of the lithium to keep all my stuff running, keep my diesel heater going through the night.
Yep.
Like we talked about, keeping it warm during the day, and even if it gets a little chilly at night, then getting it going back again the next day. So I really like the combination of both for me personally. I really
Yeah.
like the both of them, and I think they both have their pros and cons. And I'm excited to see when lithium, kind of gets that technology up to where it can be a starter battery and all that. Even though I mostly go winter camping, but to your point, I never really thought about it having to be that cold. I mean, in the last like 4 years, I mean, I've probably been in sub-zero temperatures 3 or 4 times, honestly.
Sure.
Going up to
Exactly.
Michigan, going to Wisconsin, like, I mean,
Right.
even with all that, it's still been teens or 20s, so it's not,
Yeah.
people think that's really, really cold. But once you've gone winter camping a lot, like 20s is pretty nice, especially if you have a
No,
diesel
I
heater.
oh,
So,
exactly. You got a little heater there. Exactly.
yeah.
Especially like, again, you're on, it's almost the same idea of like your house. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In the heat, when is your trunk as hot as the rest of your car? It's
Yeah.
just not, and it's
Right.
same in the winter. The inside of the trunk is not quite as cold as, it is
Sure.
outside.
Yeah.
So there's that. There was one other thing I wanted to touch on, and it's
Sure.
kind of circling back to what you were saying, using both and the red arc, and really, so our engineers, they cut their teeth making race car batteries. So they've
That's
been doing lithium for race cars for
oh,
going on almost 10 years now,
wow.
and that's where they learned how to do their thing. And so there is there, right? But those engines are much more advanced and can take
Sure.
a lot more power and need a lot more power. So
Yeah.
while some of our batteries, we have the ability, I mean, we have a battery that has 2,500 ccas, so we have plenty of power that we can crank into our batteries. It
Yeah.
really boils down to working with companies that need to make their systems be able to handle that, and it
Yeah.
comes down to a lot of these companies, it doesn't financially make sense for them to create and make it where their circuit boards and their systems can handle all of these extra things that lithium does add to it. So
Yeah.
there's going to be growing pains between large scale corporate companies and then people who can just cut their teeth and make batteries.
Sure.
But yeah, it's coming. It'll definitely come as more of the industry wants to get lithium.
Yeah.
More and more car companies and these other companies are going to be able to start making their alternators strong enough to do it, and making their systems so they can handle it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's exciting. That's awesome. So again, Michael Linden from Lithium Battery Power, thank you so much for being with me. I love this because, again, I am fascinated by the technology of it all, but I'm not super knowledgeable on it. So it was good to talk to you and learn this stuff. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Appreciate it.
Always happy to hop on, talk with you, chat, and
Sure.
look forward to doing it again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. So, guys, as always, I will put links down to Lithium Battery Power, all their stuff down below. Definitely go check them out. Awesome company. Again, they were more Expo. That's where I met Michael. So if you're looking for lithium stuff, you're looking for some solutions, definitely check them out. As always, in the description will be links to Facebook, Instagram, the podcast if you're on YouTube, YouTube if you're on the podcast, Patreon page. The newbie Overlanders group is 4,200 people, I think, now. So it's growing like wildfire. So definitely come and check that out as well. But again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will see you guys next time. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.